Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort, is currently in bits. Nightmare. Clutch failed, snapped. I don't know what's gone on. His Auto's Mk2 Escort Vangina. Just gonna weld over that rust.
No, it's all being chopped out.
Postman's been busy today. Maude's wheel bearing. Done this before.
Leather.
Trusty old press.
Put a bit of grease around that to help it slide in.
That's what she said. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes, and as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I'm soon going to be heading over to Northern Ireland to attend an event. Now, because Esther, my ST170 powered Mk2 Escort, is out of action due to our little accident recently, I've been desperately trying to get Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort, ready to take to Northern Ireland. As you can see, she is currently on axle stands around my garage in bits, and I've actually had a proper nightmare the last week trying to take care of a couple of jobs on this car. So I'll quickly talk you through exactly what's been going on. Now, the main couple of jobs I wanted to do on this car were to replace the clutch, because I've been having that clutch rattle issue for ages, and replace the sump gasket, because as you know, I've been having leaks. So last weekend I was round here in the rain and I had a go at doing both of those jobs. I decided not to drop the engine and gearbox right down to the floor. I always have trouble getting the gearbox back onto the engine without lowering it right down to the floor, but everyone else seems to be able to do it, so I had another go at trying to do it without lowering it all the way down to the floor. I managed to get the gearbox off okay, and I replaced the clutch. It's worth noting that this time the clutch release bearing was actually in one piece, whereas last time it came out in 3 pieces, and the actual cause of the clutch rattle this time was the fact that the pivot pin had come out, but luckily I had a new pivot pin in stock, so I installed that into the gearbox, fitted the new clutch. The new clutch actually came with a heavy duty style clutch release bearing. Some of you may have noticed that I put out on my Instagram asking for companies that sell those heavy duty style clutch release bearings. I wasn't able to get through to any of those companies, but as I say, luckily the new clutch that I bought came with that heavy duty bearing. So yeah, with the new clutch fitted to the engine and the new pivot pin and the new clutch release bearing fitted to the gearbox, I tried to put the gearbox back onto the engine, but as I have in the past, I failed to get it back on and I ended up lowering the engine right down to the floor. Now, it's worth noting that I forgot to disconnect the throttle cable, so that was basically overstretched, and yeah, it is almost snapped. I have ordered a new throttle cable that hasn't arrived through the post yet, but yeah, with the engine all the way on the floor, I still struggled to get the gearbox back on. I was laying in the rain and it was really awkward working around the axle stands, but I did just about manage to get the gearbox bolted back onto the engine that day, and that was last Sunday. And then I had to have a couple of days rest because my hands were injured and I had a bit of a backache, and then I started coming back around here before work and on my breaks to put the rest of the car back together. Now, when I'd basically got most of the car back together, I decided to hook up the clutch cable and just check that the clutch was working properly, and it wasn't. Basically, the clutch wouldn't disengage no matter how tight the cable was. If the car was in gear with the engine running, you'd push the clutch and the wheels would carry on moving. I tried sort of holding the wheels still on the handbrake, which did stop the wheels spinning, but then the clutch was just slipping and, you know, it was creating smoke and stuff. So yesterday when I was around here, which was a Friday, I actually booked a day off work unpaid just to give myself a better chance of getting this car ready for the Northern Ireland trip, which, by the way, is in less than a week now. But anyway, yesterday I decided to take the car apart again and pull the engine out. This time I pulled the engine out by leaving the gearbox attached to the car. I removed the radiator, disconnected everything and disconnected all the bellows and bolts, and I was able to disconnect the engine from the gearbox and pull it out this way. And you may remember that's the way that I removed the Mk1 engine before when my friend Murray was helping me. And the reason I did it on that car is because the RX-8 6-speed gearbox is so heavy. But yeah, I've basically decided in future, if I need to change a clutch, for instance, I'm just going to do it that way. And even if I did need to change the gearbox, I could just lower the gearbox down, put the new one in, bolt it up, and then put the engine back in. So yeah, that's the way I'm going to do it in future. But anyway, took the engine out and removed the clutch and started comparing it to the old one, and I'll just show you what I found. So this is actually the new paddle clutch that I bought, and I noticed that the pressure plate was exactly the same. It's actually got a number on it here, and that was exactly the same. But the friction plate, although it was exactly the same, the only difference I could find is this splined bit here, what attaches to the gearbox. I'm guessing that's pressed into there. You see how on this side it's protruding and on this side it's flush. Well, on the old clutch, which is now refitted, it was the other way round. So, you know, this side it was protruding and this side it was flush. So basically that piece was in the other way. So because the pressure plate looked exactly the same, it had the same numbers, I decided to refit the clutch with the new pressure plate, but with the old friction plate, and I put the engine back in. But this time I decided to test if the clutch is working before I bolted everything back together. Basically I had the engine hanging on the hoist still, and I just hooked up, you know, the starter motor, crank sensor, core pack, and yeah, started the engine. And this time the clutch didn't work, but it was exactly the opposite. The wheels wouldn't spin. Even with the clutch cable not hooked up, with the car in gear, the wheels wouldn't spin. So yeah, I pulled the engine out again, the same way, you know, left the gearbox attached to the car, pulled it out this way, and this time I fitted the complete old clutch. So the old friction plate and the old pressure plate, and I left the brand new heavy duty clutch release bearing in. Put it all back together, tested it, and the clutch then worked. So I don't know what's gone on, but with the full new clutch, the clutch wouldn't disengage when you press the pedal, no matter how tight the clutch cable was. And with the new pressure plate, but the old friction plate, the clutch wouldn't engage, even with the clutch cable not hooked up at all. So yeah, with the old clutch, it all seems to work. And yesterday I basically got as far as putting the engine back in, got the cross member back on, still need to put the nuts on the engine mounts and stuff. But yeah, I've now got a whole load of, you know, reassembly to do before I can actually see if this car is indeed going to make it to Northern Ireland. Now, as I say, I do need to wait for my new throttle cable to come through, but I also have ordered a new 90-degree coolant hose to go around the back there. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, the one on this car has sort of been made up out of loads of bits of pipe and that. Yeah, it's not ideal. This is part of it, and then it goes into a straight bit with a little joiner, and that's all still hooked up. So yeah, I've ordered a new 90-degree bit of silicone hose. There is one thing that I've changed on the steering column, which I'll quickly show you. So for ages now, the steering column hasn't actually been attached to the bulkhead. On the Mark IIs, there's just like a little metal tab that's welded to the column, and then that's bolted to the bulkhead there. But on the Mark I, they have these sort of carrier with a bush, which is bolted with 2 bolts in the bulkhead there. So basically, ages ago, I bought another one of these Mark I ones, and yeah, the other day I fitted that. I did have to drill a couple of holes in the bulkhead and fit a couple of riv nuts, but yeah, that's bolted on there now. Another couple of things I bought to replace on Maude are some new track rod ends, which I will throw on when I start putting the car back together. But I also wanted to replace the front wheel bearings, because the passenger side one is humming really bad, and yeah, I don't think it's safe to take the car on a long journey with a humming wheel bearing. So this morning I've come round here and I've actually removed the front hubs from the car, and I've also removed the discs from the hubs, and I'm going to be taking the hubs down to Inky's Autos, where my friend Inky is actually going to help me fit the new bearings. He'll be able to press the races in. You know, if I do it, I'd have to sort of tap them in with a socket or whatever, which isn't ideal. I was also going to take my half shafts down to Inky's, the Mark II ones and the Mark I ones, to get the retaining collars welded onto the half shafts, just to make sure that what happened to Esther, where the bearing basically slipped up the half shaft, doesn't happen to me again. But yeah, I'm going to do that another time. Now I've already got the hubs and the new bearings in the boot of Roger, the plastic Fiesta, so it's time to hit the road and head down to Inky's Autos. All right, so I've made it to Inky's Autos. As usual, plenty of classic Ford activity going on down here. The Capri that I showed you in the last video has now had the new headlining fitted. I really like this 2.0 S interior. And as I mentioned in the last video, this Capri has been treated to a brand new alloy radiator, which looks really cool in there. But this Capri does need a little bit of rust repair, which Inky's going to take care of. Inky's Mk2 Escort van project is coming along now. Last time we saw this, the front end, which is from a 4-door car, was actually outside. But yeah, now they've actually got it attached to the rest of the van, and I think they're going to carry on doing a bit of welding on this today. And the plans are to turn that van into a rear-wheel drive drag racing monster. Got a bit of rain coming, so we've got to push the Capri inside. All right, so time to crack on with Maude's wheel bearings. And Inky has already done one of them. We'll just show you the process on the second one. Our first job is to pop the seal out, like that. And then the bearings have got these races which need to be banged out. Just like that.
And then the other side.
Just like that. Inky's got this special formula to clean things like this up with. Was it like old diesel you're saying? Yeah?
Old diesel petrol mix, yeah.
Oh, cool.
When people put the wrong fuel in their car, you don't throw it away because it's spot on for cleaning. Works well. Get some brake cleaning out and clean it all off. Like brand new.
Packet full of fresh grease. Got to pack the new bearing with grease as well.
You get it right into the side of the racer there, so all the bearings get coated. She's ready to go. I'll do that front one as well. I've still got the grease in my hand. It worked that gear right in there.
Time to press the new racing. Over to the trusty old press, which is now living outside.
Use the old bearing casing to push the new one in. Yeah, she's home.
Just got to get the old race out now. It's got stuck in there a bit. Whee!
Oh my God. Right, a bit more grease in. And our pre-packed bearing. Oh, beautiful.
You've done this before?
Never. First time for everything.
Beginner's luck, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, there she goes. Got to stop playing with it now. Put a bit of grease around that to help it slide in.
That's what she said.
Back to the press. That's a fresh seal on there, so we
Protect it with the plastic.
Yep. These fly press are a little bit slower, but I like them because there's not a lot that can break on them.
Yeah.
There's no hydraulics involved.
Simple and effective.
Yeah.
Seems like a little bit less effort than when we done the half shaft bearings.
Yeah.
That's a proper crank that, isn't it?
Yeah. These are very small racers, aren't they? Oh, out she comes.
And there she is. Yeah, so this front one doesn't actually have a seal in it. The bearing just goes on once you put the hub onto the spindle. Inky will grease it up and throw the bearing in there and then just tape it up for me so that we don't get any dirt in there. Thank you so much, Inky. Much appreciated.
You're welcome, mate.
Lads are cracking on with the Mk2 van, which has been dubbed Vangina. Inky's just welded on this bracing to hold the shape, and the postman's bin. And we've got a new set of seals that are going to be going on. Just going to weld over that rust, yeah?
No, it's all being chopped out, mate.
Postman's been busy today. New set of arches as well. I thought these ones would go again. Bit of filler.
Something like that. That's not bad pressing. Isn't it? That's not bad.
All the tools.
Time to go around the corner.
The weather's not looking good, but I really need to head to my garage and start putting Maude back together. I'm going to leave the lads cracking on with the Mk2 van. And the project seems to be coming along quite quick, so I'm looking forward to seeing how far they've got next time I come down here. I'm going to do the off. Massive thanks again for doing them bearings for me. Really appreciate it.
You're good, mate.
Good luck with the rest of the van project.
I'm going to need it.
As always, I'll leave links in the description to Inky's Auto's Facebook page. Definitely give him a shout if you're anywhere near West Drayton and you need a decent mechanic, or if you need any fab work doing. Chuck the hubs back in the boot of Roger and let's get out of here. All right, so back at the garage, and it's time for me to start putting this old banger back together. Got loads to do, and I really need to get most of it done today if I'm going to stand a chance of taking this car to Northern Ireland next week. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that when I was dropping the engine out of the car last weekend, I actually damaged this brake pipe that goes from the master cylinder round to the passenger side inner wing. And yeah, the other day I basically made up a new pipe with the correct flared ends and the screw-on fittings. So yeah, I will need to bleed the brakes at some point before I drive this car again. But yeah, as I say, I need to do as much as I can today, so I'm going to crack on with it off camera and we'll just see how much I get done today. And there is one little disaster I had yesterday, but I've got a solution for it, so I'll show you that later as well. All right, so I think I'm pretty much done for the day. Got most of the car put back together, the rad's back in, all the coolant hoses are plumbed back in. Still need to hook up this one to the heater, and I need the new 90-degree bit of hose to fit at the back of the engine, but that got delivered today. Obviously still need to replace the throttle cable, but that got delivered today. I'm actually going to take this bracket home with me so that I can at least fit the new cable to the bracket, because this bit can be a bit fiddly. Underneath the car I've got the anti-roll bar hooked back up. Got the new track rod ends fitted. Still need to tighten them nuts actually. I'm going to do that before I go. Got the exhaust hooked back up. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that she will be ready to take to Northern Ireland. There is one thing that is bugging me though. Before I hooked up the clutch cable, I still need to finalise the adjustment on this and then do the other nut up. Need to put another bolt in this bracket actually. I'm going to do that in a minute. But yeah, before I'd actually hooked up the clutch cable, there wasn't any free play on the clutch fork, and I'm pretty sure there should be. Now, the engine and box did go together without me, you know, forcing them together with the bolts. So I'm hoping that that release bearing isn't putting tension on the clutch, because yeah, that will mean that the clutch will slip. But yeah, I'm not going to find that out until the last minute when I actually test drive the car. So fingers crossed that's not going to be an issue. The disaster that I mentioned earlier was the fact that the captive nut inside the chassis here for the bolt that holds the cross member on rounded off. It's not the first time that's happened. I'll show you around the other side. It actually happened here, and I had a nut welded inside and then had a plate welded here, and then it happened here. And basically my solution for it is to cut a little window in the inner wing here and then open up the flap of metal, and then I'm able to nut and bolt the cross member. I still need to put a bolt in here actually and do the nut up. But yeah, if we come back round to this side, you can see what I mean. Got a nut in there and it's just nut and bolted, and then I'll just tap that window back up just so that this sharp metal doesn't, you know, rub on the brake line or anything. But yeah, a little bit of an issue, but as I say, I knew I had a solution for it. Still need to throw a load of cable ties on things. For instance, this coolant hose here, I like to cable tie it away because I did have a problem before where the crank pulley actually rubbed a hole in the hose. I need to add some cable ties around here to sort of hold the breather hoses away from the throttle linkage. So yeah, plenty of cable ties to fit to the car. And one kind of major thing I would like to do before this car goes to Northern Ireland is fit the LSD that's currently fitted to Esther. But yeah, I'll have to save that for the day before I go to Northern Ireland. Also need to give the car a wash, take it for an alignment. So yeah, that last day before I go to Northern Ireland is going to be a busy one, but I am now at the stage where I'm quite confident that the car will be ready, as long as that clutch doesn't slip when I test drive it. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there for today. I need to pack up and get myself home. And I don't want to get home too late this evening because me and Kat are actually going on another little road trip over the next couple of days where I'm hoping to meet up with some subscribers and get their cars on the channel. And you'll be able to see that in the next couple of videos. Keep your fingers crossed that Maude will be ready to go to Northern Ireland. And I'm going to continue this video when I get home, so I'll see you in a sec. Change of plan. There is actually one other thing I want to make sure I get done today before I leave, and it involves the gearbox. I basically decided I want to raise the gearbox slightly because I feel that that might make a bigger gap between the sump there and the cross member if it's all sort of angled up more. So I've got the gearbox jacked up and I've removed the mount. Here is the mount. I already had this sort of spacer that I'd made before. Basically sits in there, and you've got the bolt that goes underneath that. It goes through a cone first and then into this and then into the gearbox. But yeah, I've basically made up this other little spacer. It's just aluminium that's been folded a few times and got a hole drilled through it. I'm hoping that I've still got enough length on this bolt because it's not a normal metric bolt, unfortunately. I don't have any other longer bolts that are the same thread as this. Yeah, if I put the cone under here and then put the bolt through, yeah, there is still a fair few threads that will thread into the gearbox. I have got this other one here, and that might still work. And I am aware that this mount is the wrong way around. I basically flipped it round and then I was able to drill my own holes, so it lines up with these GS Escorts lowering block things that sort of offset the holes. And these mean that you don't need to cut the mounts off the tunnel and move them back. It is a bodge, but it just saves moving the mounts on the tunnel. Eventually, I'm just going to mount this gearbox through the floor. But yeah, long term, I'm probably going to fit an RX-8 6-speed. Once I fit a larger gearbox tunnel, I will be mounting this gearbox through the floor, which might mean that I'll be able to get onto the quick release Allen key bolts, so that I might be able to remove the gearbox with the bell housing still attached to the engine. But anyway, I digress. Back to this mount. Tell you what, that has actually made quite a difference. I don't know if it's showing on the camera. Yeah, you can see it there. I mean, it's not a massive gap, but that should be enough to keep it away from the crossmember even when the engine's moving. Right, now I am going to pack up and make my way home. Alright, so I made it home and I've had a much needed shower. And now me and my beautiful girlfriend Kat are going to have some Chinese food. The new coolant hose for Maude came through the post today, as well as her new throttle cable. And I've already got it hooked up to the throttle cable bracket. I had a bit of trouble doing this before when I replaced the throttle cable last time. That was due to the spring breaking, and yeah, I ended up having to use the old cable with the new spring, but this time the cable actually failed. But yeah, managed to hook that up this time without it breaking, and I will keep this old spring as a spare, because like I say, last time it was the spring that broke. So yeah, now that I've got those parts, there is actually real hope that Maude might be ready for the trip to Northern Ireland, although I've got a whole day of messing about with the car to get her ready, so we'll have to see how that goes. As I mentioned, me and Kat are going on another little road trip starting from tomorrow, and hoping to bump into some subscribers and check out their cars, so you'll be able to see that on the channel over the next couple of videos. I want to send a huge thanks out to Inky for helping me with Maude's front wheel bearings earlier. Really appreciate that, mate. If any of you guys are near West Drayton and you need a decent mechanic, definitely give Inky a shout. I'll leave some links in the description so that you can contact him. If you thought this video was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media and my website. I'll also leave my email address down there for anyone who wants to contact me. Massive thanks to each and every one of you for your continued support of my channel. But other than that, until next time, from me and my beautiful girlfriend Kat, thanks for watching.